You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
So I guess, we've talked about this with our team now. We've talked to our accountants, we've talked to our financial planners, we've met with you and your team. And so once that corporate, people sometimes say, well, I don't know, should I buy it in the corporation or should I buy it? And it is their own personal, again, depending on what they have. But what are maybe some of from the legal standpoint of why I would or why I wouldn't, right? Again, if understanding you're not the account, you're not the financial planner, but why you would say, hey, I would or wouldn't do this, or the pros and cons.
Well, I mean, I think the main reason, and maybe probably one of the only reasons you do the two sets of wills, is saving of tax, right? You're talking about a tax savings every $1 million, like I said, is about $15,000. For some people, they would say that's absolutely worth it. For other people, they might say, well, 15,000 on $1 million, really, well, it's only 1.5%. So it's a personal decision, right? But you're saving a tax. So that's one main reason to do the primary and secondary wills. Sometimes another main reason would be just ease of processing. So if you put your corporate assets into this corporate will, it doesn't have to go through the process of probate. The process of probate, or estate administration as it's called now, will take anywhere from a month to the filing and approval with the court could take up to 6 to 9 months. Toronto takes 6 months, easy. Peel region, 6 months, probably easy. Halton, Hamilton region, maybe some of the other areas like in Niagara, you probably could see two to 4 months, processing time. So that's a period of at least 30 to 60 days up to potentially 180 plus, where assets are more or less kind of stuck in limbo, right? Like the person who's able to deal with them and move them along in the fact that the person died, you're kind of stuck in limbo until you get a probate certificate from the court saying you're the executor, you're appointed by the courts and this will to now deal with these assets, right? And deal with them as per the will. Whereas if you have all your corporate assets, of which all your real estate holdings are kind of umbrellaed under, now you don't have to wait that period of time. It's all there in the secondary will. You just do what the secondary will says. So you can get it all dealt with in at least a review of it and set a path of a course of action in 30 days or less. Whereas probate, you're looking at it probably at the quickest, at least 2 to 3 months.
So I want to be clear though, Ryan, about, because all those places you mentioned were Ontario, and we're talking about Canada-wide. Is that correct? It doesn't matter where you are?
Yeah, well, I would only be able to comment on Ontario because of our licensing. As lawyers, we're licensed by provinces, right? So I can only really probably speak intelligently on Ontario and how the Ontario process would work. I mean, the will, though, to your point, yes, could govern your assets, not only just coast to coast in Canada, but in continental North America and in the world, really. Your will, you only theoretically need to have one will. I don't want to put us down a path of getting distracted here, but I mean, there is some thought about having potential additional wills for assets held in other countries, right? So if you had a whole bunch of properties all owned in, say, Florida, for example, it might be a good idea to make sure you have a will that governs only assets in Florida, right? or if you were dealing with property, say in the Middle East, because you had that kind of international investment portfolio, well, the Middle East doesn't really go by a traditional English common law system of law. So it would be, again, a good idea to make sure you have the appropriate legal documents in place that would be like a will in Canada, but specifically in the Middle East for your Middle Eastern properties, for example.
So it sounds like if you have properties and investments of any kind internationally, be a really good idea to talk to your accountant, who hopefully, if they don't have the experience to work in the international venue, at least can put you in touch with accountants who have experience in that that countries or jurisdictions jurisdictional boundaries. And then on top of that, you want to have lawyers who are familiar with the rules and regulations and laws within that country. And if we're talking about, I don't know, a $30,000 little shack in Tennessee, maybe it's not worth it. I don't know. I'm not making any judgments. However, it doesn't take long for properties to add up in value. And the last thing you want to do, I would think, is get caught up, especially in a foreign court, or maybe you don't even know the language.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, again, it all boils down to, I think, the main thing we're trying to get across here too, which is taking the time to plan for your ultimate successes, right? And there's stages of success, but then there's also, you going back to your point of what is succession planning. Well, succession is, dealing with that actual event where, we're not going to live forever. We're still trying to figure that one out, but, being a success in business means making sure that you can leave a legacy of hopefully, good value and good wealth and good prosperity to whoever you want to leave that to, right? Whether it's business partners, whether it's family, whether it's community at large, or a combination of all those things. I mean, succession is just one chapter of being successful at business. So, I think a lot of the real estate investors that are either at the very beginning, stage one of their journey, or stage 5, being like a really experienced and high volume / high property individual, somebody who's coaching and mentoring and running a very successful business. And then you've got levels 2, 3, and 4, all in between there. This idea of succession planning and sitting down as early in the process as you can with your lawyer, with your tax accountant, with your financial advisor, to say, okay, these are my short, medium, long-term goals I want to accomplish. I heard the podcast, they talked about, tax structuring and having corporate versus personal wills, so what do I do? So how do I get started, and why is it important to me? I think you want to ask yourself those kinds of questions as early in the process as you can, so that you can take advantage of as many opportunities that are available. And doing it, as early as stage 1 is obviously ideal, but it doesn't always work that way. And so you have to try to learn from your mistakes and from others' mistakes and lessons, and then hopefully they bring about as much prosperity for you as possible.
Yeah, and different stages, you're going to need different things, right? And for those listeners out there, I don't know, Ryan's like a pretty nifty hockey player, and he's got some dangles and can skate. But the other thing is, like, you don't need like the $400 hockey stick if you can't even get on the ice and skate yet, right? Like, you got to work on those fundamentals. And I try to use that analogy because I know he's a big hockey fan, and I'm missing hockey right about now. It's playoff time almost. But you need those things in different stages. You don't want to kill the mosquito with a sledgehammer, but hopefully that mosquito gets bigger into something, and you're going to need a sledgehammer for that protection, right? So, and that's why always checking in, making sure that you're adapting along with your business, like Ryan said, working on that, seeing what the short, medium, and long-term plans are, and reassessing those, because the short-term plan is always the short-term plan till it leads into the medium and then the long, and then you got to restart again. What's the next short, medium, and long, and constantly evolving. So it's good to check in and have a frame of reference to do that.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.